guys, it's your girl Miss Cookie, and today we are back with book club part 7. So I thank you guys for being patient with your girl. Thank you guys for staying tuned with your girl, rocking with your girl, hitting those bell notification buttons, and subscribing to our channel as to when we will be posting new material. If you're currently following along, we're currently reading the book, The Tears That Taught Me, and we are journaling Through Tears I Grow. So I always tell y'all to hurry up and get these books, but am I reminding you guys as to where these books are? You know what? I was looking at my videos, and I was like, man, how can you improve on certain things? And it's like, okay, I'm telling y'all to go get these books, but am I telling you where to go get them from? Okay, so if you guys currently have the TikTok app, these books are on the TikTok app. Okay, so you could just go shop, lace them in your cart, and order these books. Okay, so the book is written by Morgan Richard Oliver. Okay, so if you don't have these books, I highly recommend that you go get these books because we're currently in book club part 7. Okay, so we are breezing through this book. Okay, so the book is 162 pages, and we are currently on page 46. Okay, so we are almost done with this book, y'all, and we will be moving on to the next book. I recently posted on my Facebook page which book I chose for the next book club session. So if you're currently following me on Facebook, make sure you go look at that new book that will be the next book club session. I do like to give you guys roughly a month or two before I promote this book. But yeah, so we are in book club part 7. Thank y'all for rocking with your girl. Thank you guys for being patient. Thank you guys for being tuned with our channel. Okay, so real quick, you guys were giving an assignment to do last week. Okay, so yeah, your girl came back within the week. You know what I'm saying? Because we're being persistent with this book club. I'm gonna make time for you guys because that's what I do. If I want to be motivating people and speaking how I speak, I have to make sure that I'm on time with these videos. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, we left off on page 25. Hold on. So if you don't have your book, I highly recommend that you go get your journal and your book. If you don't have this material, write it down, take notes, whatever you need to do so that you're staying in tune and up to date as to what we are doing, what is being presented to you, and how can you move differently. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, we are currently on page 25 of the journal, Through Tears I Grow. This was the assignment for last week. Okay, so, and it reads, okay, the assignment for last week, y'all. Okay, so when you think about a setback or struggle, can you refrain from it and write 3 lessons you learned from it? So that was the assignment for last week. So I hope you guys did that assignment. It was only one assignment, but this week we will be doing 2 assignments. So yeah, go grab your pen, go grab your notebook, whatever you need to do so you can self-reflect as to how can you grow from certain situations. Okay, so if you have your book, we will resume on page 26 to 27, y'all. But first things first, we are going to go into the book. Okay, so we are reading The Tears That Taught Me by Morgan Richard Oliver. Like I said earlier, this book can be purchased off of the TikTok shop. Okay, so you can buy it singly or you can buy it in pairs. Whatever your discretion is, follow along. That's all we want you to do. And grow from the sessions that we present to you. Okay, so last week we left off on page 46. Okay, so your girl did have a little time to do some reading. For this book club session, part 7, we will only be looking at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so we will only be looking at 5 pages this week. So we will be reading from page 46. If you have your book, I highly recommend that you go get your book. If you don't have the book, then it is time for you to take notes and reflect on how can you grow from certain situations. What is Morgan Richard Oliver saying to us at this time, along with our godly father speaking? You know what I'm saying? Because what she has written is almost a path for us to follow. You know what I'm saying? Because she has some very good points within this book that will help us grow. You know what I'm saying? So that's the whole purpose of this book club. It's about growing. You know, so yeah, we're not going to talk too long. We are going to resume on page 46. Like I said, grab your pen, grab your paper, take notes, and reflect off of this. You know what I'm saying? Okay, so page 46 reads, okay, some situations are not for you to handle or fight. Furthermore, God will not change some situations if his ultimate goal is to change you. Okay, so you just use discernment and know when it's time to be still or to speak. Okay, obedience is what will lead you to overcome. Okay, so real quick, I did get the biblical meaning of discernment and obedience because that is something that your father speaks on. You know, so what is the biblical meaning of discernment? Okay, so the God-given ability to distinguish between truth and error, good and evil, and light and darkness. Okay, allowing believers to see things from God's perspectives. Okay, so that was the definition of discernment. If you need to take notes, I highly recommend that you rewind this video. Do what you need to do to get that understanding of discernment, the biblical meaning of discernment. Okay, so obedience. So within this chapter, it spoke on being obedient. So what is the biblical meaning of obedience? Okay, so it is an active, heartfelt submission to God's authority, characterized by hearing and acting upon God's word. Okay, so if you need to further look into how do you get the gift of discernment or how do you get the gift of obedience, I highly recommend that you look into that at your own time. Because listen, this is the walk of your path. You know, so in order to be obedient, you need to know what do you need to do. You know what I'm saying? So do your research. Like I've always spoke on, never let anyone tell you something without having the receipts as to what can I look up under, how can I get this definition, and how can I understand what is being said to me? Okay, so Back to the book. We are currently on page 47. Okay, so some people think that silence reflects an admission of guilt, a person's inability to stand on their own, or a sign of weakness. So sometimes silence is not always a good thing for your situation, because you have to be able to communicate to one another. And I'll just speak on your spouse. Okay, because at some point there has to be communication in order for you to be able to understand what is this person trying to say without saying it. You know what I'm saying? And communication is key here. So I don't think that silence is always a sign of weakness. You know what I'm saying? Because if you don't know how to say something, that's all you got to say. You know what I'm saying? If you're not good with communicating, that's all you got to say. So get your partner at an understanding as to, oh, this person might not know how to speak correctly to me. You know what I'm saying? So I'm going to be a little more patient with this person. But like I said, communication is key here. Okay, so although silence is often misinterpreted, misused, and misunderstood, it is often a power and testament of someone's level of self-control and self-awareness. Okay, so that's good that you have that self-control. That's good that you have that self-awareness. But does that person or your spouse understand the silence of how you move? So, so your silence can be misinterpreted as to when you're dealing with someone. If you do something, they're going to think the total opposite because you're not communicating, if that makes sense. Okay, so communication is key here, depending on if the situation is hostile. If the situation is about to explode, then yeah, I highly recommend that you stay silent. But if there is not a hostile environment, if there is not an environment where this can turn physical, why not speak? Let your person understand where you coming from, where your mind at. Some people don't pick up off of what you do. They think the opposite, and I just said that. Okay, so those who think their strength, talent, and worth execute that truth from their energy, actions, or absence often have nothing to say, stems from having nothing to prove. Okay, so, we're going to stop right here in this paragraph. So, you have nothing to prove to anyone, but remaining silent can hurt the situation if you guys can come to an agreement as to what is going on. Not saying that the situation can always turn left, because that's not what it is, but remaining silent is not always good in certain situations. Back to the book. So often having nothing to say stems from having nothing to prove. Okay, so when you realize that your words are essentially a form of currency, you quit spending time and effort trying to communicate with those who lack the ability or desire to truly understand. Okay, so what Morgan Richard Oliver say? Okay, so we're going to quit spending time and effort to communicate with those who lack the ability to understand. But if you are dealing with a person that's very intelligent, very bright, very aware, should I say, there's no way that you shouldn't be able to communicate with them. If they don't understand, of course, then it's like, okay, yeah, maybe I shouldn't address this right now. But if your person is intellectually intelligent, talk to them. You know what I'm saying? If y'all not in a heated situation, why not talk? So that's where relationships tend to go south or go bad because of the communication. Okay, so if you're following in your book, we're going to go to page 48. Okay, so going through hard times alone will show you that you are much stronger than you think and can depend on far fewer people than you know. Nope, not that one. It's this one. Okay, I'm sorry, baby. Okay, so what I just say? Okay, so going through hard times alone will show you that you are much stronger than you think. Okay, and you can depend on far fewer people than you know. Okay, so yeah. So this just speaks on not depending on what a person can give you or do for you. Because your father can move mountains for you long as you're being faithful and committed to his word. You know what I'm saying? Because you have to pray your way through situations in order for it to improve. So you will be tested to see. You know what I'm saying? Is this person for you? Is this person going to have your back? Is this person going to be that man or that woman that you need them to be? You know what I'm saying? So you will get that point in your life where you will say, you know what, I got this. I'm going to do this and I will overcome this because I'm me. You know what I'm saying? So you think very highly of yourself. And I've already told y'all that. Don't let anyone belittle you in any kind of way. No matter what you're going through. You know what I'm saying? You keep installing in your mind that you don't need anybody. You got this. And watch that outcome when you start being faithful to your father. You know what I'm saying? Because he's the only one that can make miracles happen as to what they say. You guys call it miracles. I call it chains being broken. You hear me? But yeah, so page 49. Okay, so don't pull up a seat with or vulnerably speak to those who normally eat with your enemies. Okay, so I most definitely can't relate to this because, listen, my circle very small. You know what I'm saying? So access to me, listen, everybody can't get access to you. And that's something that you have to learn. You know what I'm saying? So I wouldn't be able to relate to, speaking to those or having a seat at a table with people that might be your enemies, because I don't do that. But if you do, that would be something that you need to think about. Because when you are your father's child, everybody can't have access to you. And that's just something that you will learn over the years. And you will understand it better once you begin to pray on certain situations, once you begin to understand certain situations as to how are you being put into this new life, so you won't have snakes at your table, or you won't speak to those that might envy you in some kind of way. Yeah, you know what I'm saying? So if you might be dealing with someone like that, then you need to pinpoint that right away and let that go, because those people mean you no good. You know what I'm saying? So you want to have people at your table that your father sent, and you will way understand it. Once you get to praying, once you get to fasting, you have to pray for all of those spirits to be removed from you. And then you will see them fall off. You know what I'm saying? If they're not meant for you, there's no way that they will still be attached to you. And that's just something that you should think about. Okay, so we're going to go to page 50, which will be our last page for tonight. And we will resume on page 51. Hold on. Yeah, we'll resume on page 51. Okay, so when you're at your lowest, you'll see who's truly there. Okay, if it's just a phone call or prayer, even true friends let you know you're not alone. Okay, there are there to convict you and help you get back up. They love you when you can't love yourself. Okay, so when you're at your lowest, sometimes you need someone to say, hey, you got this. Certain people need that. You know what I'm saying? But when your Father is building you up, when your Father is making you stronger, all you need is a prayer, and you have to pray for yourself. You have to be able to walk alone. You have to be able to stand alone. You have to be able to build alone so you can say your Father gets all of this victory. So no one can ever say that they gave you any handouts because you did it by yourself. You know what I'm saying? So along with your Father. So I highly recommend that you pray yourself through your situation and don't let anyone have that credit as to say, yeah, I helped you get to that place, because they will come back and try to say that. But no, you know who get the victory out of this. You know what I'm saying? And your Father will send you people. Humans that are here to help you, that are here to build you, but you have to be able to decipher when it is sent for your Father or when it is sent from the enemy. You know what I'm saying? So we are praying. I hope that you guys are praying that your Father is sending you only his children. You don't want any of the children from the enemy, because when the enemy comes, he tends to try to manipulate your finances. He tends to come to manipulate your mind. He tends to come to manipulate everything about you. You know what I'm saying? So you have to be able to say, hey, hold on. I need to run a test on you to see who are you assigned to. You know what I'm saying? Run tests on your people that you engage with, you encounter with. If they're here for you, run a test and it will show. And sometimes everyone is not brought by the enemy, but what their actions show, you most definitely know they are not moving in your Father's domain. You know what I'm saying? Just off how they move, because your Father would not bring the power of confusion. Your Father brings and sends the power of clarity. So if you're dealing with someone, there's no way you're going to be confused as to where you stand with this person, what are you doing with this person, or anything in that nature. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, we are concluding our book club session, The Tears That Taught Me, and we are going to move on to our journaling session, Through Tears I Grow. Okay, y'all, I know I previously said that this was the book of thoughts that I grow, because that's what I was thinking at that time. Y'all, forgive me. You know what I'm saying? But y'all see what the book say. Through tears, I grow. Okay, because I think in a couple of previous of the videos, I said this was thoughts that I grow. Through something like that, whatever. But I did watch these previous videos and I'm like, Cookie, what is you doing? But okay, yeah. So we are currently reading Through Tears I Grow. And we are currently on page, what I say? 26. Okay, so It reads, so do you view trials and tribulations as deliberating failures or stepping stones to greater wisdom? Okay, so what is trials and tribulations? I have that definition for you guys. So it can be defined as difficult experiences or problems. Okay, so the biblical meaning of trials and tribulations are our faith is tested and devotion to Christ can help grow in the sufferings. Okay, so in Romans chapter 12, verse 12, it says, rejoice in hope and be patient. In tribulations can be consistent in prayer. Okay, like I told y'all, when you're going through these trials and tribulations, stay faithful to your Father. Continue to pray your way through any of those situations that you're dealing with. Okay, so page 27 reads, okay, so true or false type of question. Okay, so no response is often the greatest response. What? No. Okay, so I do have notes that I'm going to be reading from you guys. Okay, so depend on the context of the situation. Okay, silence can sometimes be more powerful and meaningful of words. Sometimes direct response can be crucial. Always avoid conflict. Okay, so yeah. We spoke on this already. If that situation is going to make you end up in a domestic abuse, don't even speak on it. Let that situation die down. We spoke on that already. But yeah, so make sure you avoid conflict with your person or with the individual that you want to express yourself to, but can't express yourself to at that moment and at that time. Okay, so communication in some cases can send a message of not being interested in continuing the conversation, but it does not communicate is the other response to understand. Okay, so at some point, you have to be able to communicate with others to understand where their mind is. I think I spoke on this already. I can't remember if I spoke on this, but I did watch these videos. You know what I'm saying? So, communication is key here. Make sure that you're speaking to your significant other, speaking to your friend, speaking to your spouse, whatever that person is to you, you have to be able to communicate to them. And if you don't understand, how can you communicate to them? Silence is not always the best thing to do. You have to be able to speak. You know what I'm saying? Let that person understand where you coming from. Nobody is mind readers. Well, I know I ain't no mind reader, or I haven't got that sense to be a mind reader, but it is what it is. So emotional boundaries. Okay, so no response. Okay, so a no response can be interpreted as the risk of communication, like I just said. So, because you're not a mind reader or a psychic or anything in that nature, when someone goes silent and don't communicate with you, then that makes you think the opposite of actually what they're doing. So I highly recommend that people learn to communicate with others, because communication will put you in a whole different comfort zone, will make you understand, oh, this is not what that person wanted to do, because they communicated that to you. Because if you don't communicate, people will assume the opposite of what you're thinking. no two people think alike. You know what I'm saying? And I know y'all know that already, but yeah. So when you have your own mind and this person has their own mind, the way they moving will make you think the opposite if there's no communication. You know what I'm saying? So yeah. And that might not even be their purpose on how they're moving. You know, but you have to let people know where you at mentally. You know, because yeah, that could get really deep, but we don't have time for that. But yeah, so I thank y'all for watching. Thank y'all for subscribing. Thank you guys for staying tuned in with your girl and tuned into our book club. We will resume in the following week. I hope you guys will resume our sessions and follow back within the next week. Other than that, I hope you guys are enjoying your life, enjoying your day, enjoying your night, whatever you're doing. Make sure you stay healthy at all times. Let go of anything that might be hindering you from being great. Overcome them tests that are being brought your way. Stay focused as to what do you have to do to grow. You know what I'm saying? The higher the anointment, the greater the test. So I want you to think about that. You know what I'm saying? Because I'm hot, but I ain't sweating. That's the key thing here. So learn how to deal with your situations on a greater level. I do always tell myself, I tell my children, there's nothing too big for a giant. You know what I'm saying? And that makes you think, what do you mean by that? You know what I'm saying? So when I say that there's nothing too great for a giant, that means overcome whatever situation you're dealing with because you're stronger. You know what I'm saying? So I tell my inner family, my immediate family, hey, ain't nothing greater to a giant. You hear me? So keep that mindset. I hope that you will consider that mindset. Do what you do. Keep being great. And I'm out. I'll see y'all next week.